Good morning, petals and thorns. Welcome back to Smell the Roses. I am your host and chief rosebud, Raquel Rose. And today we are going to talk about welfare history. Yes, because SNAP has been the discussion on all of our panels, just about on every podcast lately. So let's get into this. Um, the origins of welfare. Um, Start like this. Okay. So, welfare programs were designed as a safety net during the Great Depression. But from the start, the system reflected social biases, obviously. We know what they were. They often excluded groups like Black people and people that lived in rural communities, whether you were white or Black. Okay. And it was built more as a temporary fix than a long term solution to poverty. Okay, so welfare is not a long term solution to poverty, and it was never designed to be that. Okay, there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape when it comes to welfare. The system is often too complex for the people it's supposed to actually help. There are long forms, confusing eligibility rules, and inconsistent state policies that create barriers for people, right? Because in every state, it's different. And so it just creates a lot of problems on the system with getting everybody in and getting everybody their aid. So many people who qualify actually never receive benefits due to the system's inefficiency. And we don't really talk about that when we talk about the numbers of people that are qualifying for welfare but are actually not receiving it. There's a lot of stigma and misinformation. Welfare has long been tied to stereotypes, from the welfare queen narrative of the 1980s to what we see today on TikTok and YouTube. Um, Today, right? This stigma, it discourages people from seeking help, and it fuels public resentment towards recipients. And that's what we've been seeing a lot lately. This stigma discourages people from seeking help, and it fuels public resentment towards recipients. And it turns poverty into a moral judgment instead of a policy failure. Underfunding and political tug of war. We're seeing it. We're seeing underfunding and tug of war right now, right? Funding is always at risk due to shifting political powers. That means every 4 years, people that receive welfare come under different scrutiny as administrations change and their priorities toward welfare change. Programs like SNAP and TANF haven't kept up with the cost of living, and welfare becomes more of a talking point in elections rather than a priority in reform. So they're talking good games, but they're not actually sitting at the table to reform the policy of welfare that they feel is so corrupt, right? And so this creates the cycle problem, right? Critics argue that welfare keeps people dependent, but the reality is most benefits are temporary. The real issue is the system rarely helps people transition out of poverty. Lack of access to education, childcare, and fair wages actually trap many families in survival mode. And that's just, these are facts. Okay. And then there are modern implications, right? Technology has improved some access to welfare, but there are digital barriers like no internet, no smartphone, and etc. Because if you're poor, then you likely don't have internet at home. You probably have to go to a library or a public setting to access it. You've got to have a computer or a smartphone to do so. So if you don't have internet and you don't have a smartphone, you're going to struggle with getting assistance without having to walk into a brick and mortar building. And if you're someone that lives in a rural area, those places might not be readily available to you. The pandemic actually briefly showed how expanded benefits worked, but once rolled back, millions of people began to struggle again. And it revealed that the system can be fixed, but only with um, only with the political will. It has to be the political will of the president to do so, right? If this is something that you want to actually fix, you're going to have to put some muscle behind it. And I think welfare is one of those problems that is just so big that it's intimidating to actually want to hash out. I'm sure they feel like this is something that can't really be corrected. So I feel like the attitude towards welfare is why even bother, right? Which is wrong, but there are a lot of things that a president has to worry about, right? Wars, famine, natural disasters. So I think that is why welfare takes a backseat. Um, so the takeaway in all of this is welfare wasn't designed to empower people. It was designed to manage poverty. To truly smell the roses, we have to rethink welfare as a pathway to independence, not a punishment for being poor. So that's why I have this article here pulled up for you all. I wanted you guys to see uh, what this article was talking about when it comes to the latest in the developments for people receiving SNAP this month. Okay. So in this article here, it says a federal judge thanks Trump, but orders him to make SNAP payments. All right. So we're going to get into this article, and this was posted yesterday, November 1st, 2025. A federal judge in Rhode Island followed up Friday's oral ruling with a written order Saturday requiring President Donald Trump's Agriculture Department to make full food stamp payments no later than the end of Monday, or alternatively, partial payments by the end of the day Wednesday. Chief Judge John J. McConnell Jr. of the U.S. District Court for the District of Rhode Island was responding to the administration's request for a written order, as well as Trump's Friday night social media post asking the court for clarity as to how USDA could make the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program payments. I don't want Americans to go hungry, Trump wrote on Truth Social after McConnell's earlier ruling from the bench on Friday afternoon. This is Donald Trump, I ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. If we were given the appropriate legal direction by the court, it will be my honor to provide the funding. He said it would be his honor. So, what do you think he's doing here? He's putting it on the judge to tell him how to actually pay these people and with what, because the money has already been appropriated. That means the money has been designated to go to a certain thing. Now they want the money that is in reserves that was set to go to a certain thing, like a natural disaster. He's asking the judge, well, how do you legally suggest I make that happen? Because the judge knows that the money has already been set aside for something specifically. They're going to have to change that bucket of money to reflect what it is going to be used for. Because if there is a natural disaster that happens after he releases those funds, who do you think he wants on the hook for the drama and the fallout that's going to happen when whoever gets hit with the next hurricane does not get any kind of aid from the government. He at that point, judge will say, "Hey, don't talk to me. Talk to that judge in Rhode Island that told me to spend that money that I was supposed to give you guys going through the hurricane to the people that are on welfare." Oh, in his 7-page order Saturday, Judge McConnell acknowledged the president's social media posts and wrote in a footnote, "The court greatly appreciates the president's quick and definitive response to the court's order and his desire to provide necessary SNAP funding." The Trump USDA has argued it has neither legal authority nor available funds in reserve to provide full November benefits given the ongoing partial government shutdown. Even if it could use SNAP contingency funds, the administration argued in court that available amounts weren't enough to cover full payments and it would be too difficult administratively to implement reduced benefits. McConnell, an appointee of President Barack Obama, wrote that the administration has sufficient contingency funds provided in fiscal year 2024 and fiscal 2025 that were available for at least partial payments. There is no question that the congressionally approved contingency funds must be used now because of the shutdown, McConnell wrote. Currently, there is 5.25 billion available in the program's contingency fund. Administration lawyers argued this week in a separate but related case in Massachusetts. Ensuring full benefits are paid for November could require at least 8.5 billion, they said. And draining the full amount remaining in the reserve fund would deplete resources needed to potentially respond to natural disasters, such as 6 billion in food stamp benefits distributed to affected states and Puerto Rico in the aftermath of 2017's hurricanes, they said. McConnell dismissed such arguments and said that the law requires full monthly payments to be paid whenever possible, or at minimum, a reduced amount based on available funds. To cover the remainder once contingency funds are drained, McConnell wrote that USDA can tap what's known as Section 32 funding, which is funded by customs receipts, and as of October 8th had a balance of more than 23 billion. Section 32 is reserved mainly for child nutrition programs, though it has funded other activities, and USDA has authority to transfer 7% out for other uses. Administration lawyers pointed out that 300 million of the child nutrition funds were recently transferred to cover a shutdown related shortfall in the social supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children, but that no such funding could similarly be transferred to pay SNAP benefits. And even if they could, figuring out how to implement reduced payments has never been attempted and would be exceedingly difficult, highly disruptive, and delayed, requiring a reworking of every state system to recognize and set forward a reduced benefit. The Justice Department wrote. McConnell disagreed. He ordered the administration to simply make the full benefit payments no later than the end of the day Monday, November 3rd, which would be more easily administered and just requires USDA to tap the full contingency fund plus Section 32 or other available resources. Or, he wrote, the department must expeditiously resolve the administration and clerical burdens it's described in seeking to make reduced payments and do so by the end of the day, Wednesday, November 5th. Separately, a Massachusetts federal judge on Friday said she'd likely order benefit payments to go out if USDA hasn't acted accordingly by Monday. Oh, so this is really getting sticky. Okay. There's a lot of money that the government has. That is true. There are a lot of funds with millions and trillions of dollars within them. But those funds are set aside and they are supposed to be used for very specific things. And those specific things are always written out and described. It's kind of like when you buy a house and you look at your HUD-1 form. That form itemizes everything that the seller is going to pay and then everything you as the buyer has to pay. And that's the same with the government ledger, okay? There's something that the federal government has to pay. There's something that the state governments have to pay into these programs and systems for everybody, right? But once they get the money allocated to them, they have to give the money out the way they said they would. Okay. So this new thing that we're hearing about here, this Section 32 funding is probably going to be something that we hear more about going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if Congress, if we are still in a shutdown position. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear more of Section 32, about Section 32 rather. But okay, so this is, I've covered the history. I'm telling you, I told you guys a little bit about the history of welfare, and now we're talking about modern times. But I thought it would be cool to actually go back to the 1970s and see how welfare was working for the people back then. And I want y'all to see how similar we are today to the people in 1970. So I'm going to switch screens. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Hey, y'all. And then I'm going to share another screen. And let's see. Yeah, here we go. All right, let me make this big and pretty. And here we go.
To many Americans, the welfare rolls are saturated with lazy people who would rather sit back and take it easy while hard-working taxpayers foot the bill.
Let's start this over. Hold on.
To many Americans, welfare rolls are saturated with lazy. To many Americans, the welfare rolls are saturated with lazy people who would rather sit back and take it easy while hard-working taxpayers foot the bill. To those who believe in the great American dream that every man can pull himself up by his own bootstraps, the solution to the welfare problem is primarily a matter of taking people off the welfare rolls and putting them on the payrolls. What is fact? What is myth? Who are these people on welfare? And what changes are needed in our welfare system?
I don't want welfare to support me. I want welfare to find a job for me, a job where I can work and make a living on my own.
This is the public hearing held in March of this year in Fresno, California, the richest agricultural county in the world.
Are you employed?
No, I'm not.
When were you last employed?
It was in 1958.
What brought your work to an end?
I become disabled. In 1954, I fell off a ladder working out on the ranch.
I go into debt in wintertime and work. My wife and I work in summertime to pay off those debts, and then the cycle just over and over. Hard times come again, we go in debt again. and so on. Same thing. It's just a cycle. If I ever applied for welfare in my whole lifetime, must have been about twice or three times in my lifetime that I remember, and that was because I really had to.
In other words, it goes against your grain to take welfare?
No, I don't like that. I don't like to go before the welfare department and beg for food. No, sir, I never did like that. I've had all the chance in the world to become a #1 beggar, but we don't do that.
What makes you feel like you're begging when you go in there?
Look, lady, I don't know if you ever begged for food yet or not, but I'm going to tell you. When you go to the welfare department, these people are ready for you. In fact, they're hostile.
Why do they discriminate us by saying the Mexicans are getting welfare, the poor people is getting welfare? Why don't they turn around and say the grower is getting welfare? And he is getting it on a bigger basis, because this son of a gun, year after year, will be getting millions of dollars out of the government because they didn't work the land or the.
Okay, so here I wanted to stop it because what are we hearing from our farmers in modern times and today? What are we hearing from our farmers? We're hearing that they aren't getting those welfare benefits anymore, that they're struggling, that their crops are dying because they aren't getting those government funds that they thought they would get because they've always received them. You have a lot of farmers today angry at the Trump administration saying, hey, we voted for you, and now we don't get the money that we need to grow crops. So, here, he has made a valid point. They do receive a portion of government welfare to keep their farms afloat. Um, just like many large corporations get government bailouts or government welfare, whatever you want to call it, so that they can keep people employed and keep the machine running. Right? A lot of big corporations provide us with lots of jobs and paychecks to pay our mortgages, our light bills, and so what have you. So that's why they get a portion of, help from the government. But look what happened in 1970. He's sitting up here saying that the farmers get welfare, but here we are in 2025, and now the farmers are like, hey, we're not getting that money anymore.
Or that, here, Mr. So-and-so, here's so many millions. But that's called something different. That doesn't call welfare, even if that's the real word for that. But no, they rather discriminate us than the Mr. Grower.
Last year, farmers in this area were subsidized in excess of $60 million so they wouldn't plant something. They received also, God knows how much, for technological studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara, at Davis, and so on and so forth, to create machineries to put these people out of a job.
The American people voice little objection to their.
You see, back then they were worried about the machines that were actually helping them crop and till the land. And today we're fussing over AI taking jobs. So back then it was machines, those big machines, that tractors, all of those kind of inventions were doing the same thing that AI is doing to us today.
Tax dollars being used for business subsidies, but cry out loudly against welfare grants. Could the reason be that welfare receives an imbalance of the attention and publicity? Or is there a basic resentment against the poor? Can it be that many hard-working Americans resent the fact that welfare recipients seem to be getting something for nothing?
People do have to stand in lines. We do get very busy. We do have long federal, state, and county forms to fill out, which ask every question from when you last clipped your toenails on up. This is unfortunate.
In some states, a single aged person can receive a larger grant than an unemployed mother with 3 children. And in no state is assistance given to the working poor.
We don't have anything. We work out on a farm. I have to pay income tax. I have to miss meal to pay that.
I am a human being as well as the next person. I like to be treated as a human being. I like to be talked to as a human being. And I don't know very many people that tries to get on the welfare too. That's usually the last resort. If you get the feeling that your interviewer is getting the money out of his pocket to hand you, and you know about just how you'd feel about giving me $35, $40 a month out of your own pocket, your own earnings, you'd be hesitant about it, and it seems that that's the way they seem to do it.
But under the law, you are just as much entitled, under certain circumstances, to this money as they are to their salary. There's no difference, and people should understand that.
Yeah, Your Honor, I understand you, but I don't think you understand me. We understand that, and we feel that way about it. But it seems as though to me, maybe I'm wrong, it would be better, maybe we should have a commission with them. I mean, like you people are with us, they should have a commission to explain it to them that the money don't come out of their pocket. Now, we understand you. I do. So that is the problem. But thank you so much for trying.
In the 1964 presidential campaign, Senator Goldwater had a particularly rousing rally in Odessa, Texas, an arid area noted for its rich petroleum deposits and conservative politics. Asked how he felt the evening had gone, Goldwater said, "Great, these are my kind of people. They came out here, they worked hard, and they struck oil." The senator was not joking. He reflected the time-honored American tradition which has enshrined hard work as a noble exercise producing indubitably the rewards of success. The trouble is that not every conscientious toiler is fortunate enough to strike oil. Millions have labored a lifetime with little more to show for it than a mortgage and a heart attack. Gradually, American society is beginning to concede that some jobs can be demeaning and that luck and ruthlessness can have a lot to do with success. Gradually, we are beginning to realize that people are not always to blame for their own misfortunes, that a man is not necessarily a sinner just because he is unemployed. Plainly, society has an obligation to the poor that goes beyond charity. Clearly, welfare, as now operated, is not the answer. But unsurprisingly, President Nixon is finding performance harder than his campaign promise to get people off welfare rolls and onto payrolls. The harsh fact is that countless welfare cases are simply not salvageable. Much of this is due to past neglect, seated in the ridiculous American dream fantasy that everybody can make it to the top if he'll only try. The idea is not to rob the old to reimburse the young. Millions of senior citizens are having it rough enough as it is. But a more equitable balance needs to be struck. It's time this civilized nation, so-called, checked its own mental retardation in its savage handling of the plight of the poor.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing that. That is a lot to toil with, right? I mean, my heart goes out to everyone struggling right now, you know? When we talk about the system, welfare is one of those topics that's just been messy, layered, emotional, and often misunderstood. I get it. Um, it's a lot because from the very beginning, welfare was created with good intentions, right? To catch people when they fall. But here's the thing, the system is itself was never built to help people truly stand back up. That gumption has to come within, you know, whether, you know, people are lucky or not, you usually have to work really hard for the things you have, especially today. You know, back in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, welfare programs were rolled out as a lifeline, but not to everyone. Not everyone got to grab the lifeline rope. Many Black and rural families were left out from the very start. So the foundation of welfare was built on cracks, big biases, inequality, and short-term thinking, basically. And then we fast forward to now, and we're still patching those cracks instead of rebuilding a new structure. The process is often confusing and humiliating, as we could see from those gentlemen in the video. The Mexican man and the white man that said he got hurt on that ladder. Um, you know, they discuss long forms and inconsistent state rules and basically endless red tape. Some people who need help the most don't even qualify for it, or they just give up trying to get it because there are so many inefficiencies in the welfare system that they just give up, and even when they do get help, it's rarely enough to move forward or to, really get some kind of leg up. It just basically keeps them afloat. And then there's stigma. Society loves to label people lazy and dependent and, all of these bonquisha welfare queen. These narratives were designed to shame the poor instead of holding the system accountable. Poverty becomes a personal failure instead of what it really is, and it's a policy failure. And in every election cycle, from Nixon to Trump, welfare becomes a political football. One side cuts funding, the other side promises reform. Meanwhile, real people are caught in between, trying to figure out how to eat, how to pay rent, and how to survive. The truth is, welfare wasn't designed to empower, it was designed to manage poverty. And that is the problem. If we really want to smell the roses, we have to stop asking how people got poor and start asking why the system keeps them there. Because welfare should be more than a bandage. It should be a bridge, one that leads to stability, dignity, and independence. And that's my rosy thought of the day. I hope that you all have a lovely Sunday, that you enjoyed this video, that you learned something. And I hope to see you all Monday at 9 p.m.